you're going to leave a nasty response to my video, just leave it. Now, like, you put the energy down to write it, and then you don't leave it, and then I can't communicate with you, and we can't, like, create a dialogue to talk about it. It doesn't help. So if you're going to be nasty, just leave it so we can have a dialogue. I welcome a dialogue. If you're just going to be nasty, then, I mean, if it makes your day feel better, just be nasty. Go ahead, be nasty. You know, I will say that how you respond to people reflects more upon you than it does the other person. But I would love to communicate with people that are struggling to understand this. As an ex-officer, if I were a immediate supervising officer and I received a call from someone like a church that was upset with learning that they had this offender in their area that was working somewhere, and they were upset about this, there's just, you know, it's very clear how to handle this. They would normally call up and say, hey, I want to complain about this guy. Here he's out. Saw him the other day at the Burger Hut. I don't want him working there. Sir, I am that offender supervising officer. Have you seen him do something that's unbecoming or inappropriate with a child? No. Do they have a play area at that restaurant? No. Have you seen him have physical contact with any of the customers that is any way inappropriate or undue? No. Have you seen him be inappropriate with any of his coworkers? No. Well, sir, what concerns you? Well, I saw him hold a bottle of pee the other day. Sir, how do you know it was a bottle of pee? Well, the girls at the eye shop told me it was a bottle of pee, and they say it is disgusting. Sir, I understand that the girls at the eye shop may have told you that it was a bottle of pee. It may or may not have been a bottle of pee. If you feel that he is mishandling bodily fluids while working with food, please feel openly able to call the health department or the Tennessee State Department of Health. They will look into that and investigate that. If you feel he's doing something criminal, please tell me what he may be doing criminally that I need to report to the parole board or to the local county sheriff to either press new charges or to violate his parole. Well, I've not seen him do anything criminal. I just don't want him here. Okay, sir, this man has gone through court, done his time, served his sentence, now he is out on parole. He has to be reintegrated into community. That means he has to work because he has to pay for supervision and his treatment and his therapy and everything else. He has to work. We do our best to dictate the safest places for these offenders to work. He can't work anywhere with children, anywhere where there's a play area, anywhere that there is a daycare within so many thousand feet, a church with a daycare, an elementary school. Tennessee state law is very, very, very strict on this. I would like to give you a link to where you can go and read up on Tennessee Sex Offender Registry laws, requirements for work and employment and for supervision. And then if you see anything that violates that, please feel free to contact me or the local sheriff. But just as per being unhappy that this person is in your community, I'm sorry, sir, I cannot help you with that. I would advise you to look into taking care of that anger in a different way. And please be responsible and understand that continued harassment of this offender could result with charges upon yourself. Please be aware that this person has the same right as any citizen right now in this community. And while they're a registered sex offender, they still do not deserve to be harassed, punished, or forced out of employment options because of emotional tirades. If there is anything physical done, if you see any impropriety, if you see him anywhere with children, immediately call me and I will handle it. But this is not something that I'm allowed to fix per the law. It is not something that you're allowed to fix per the law. And I understand that sometimes in communities we have people in our communities that we don't necessarily want to have in our communities. At the same time, it's a community, and therefore all the laws apply to everyone the same, and he is allowed to live here, work here, as long as he's within his parameters of supervision. Is there anything else that I can help you with today? That's pretty much how it goes. Now, if you saw them be inappropriate with a child, boom, immediate warrant. Immediate new charges. Done. Honestly, the urine thing, if it is urine or not, that's gone through the telephone system now, so God only knows. And hair salons, eye shops, tanning salons, nail salons, honestly, the information you get, you should probably just throw it away. I'm a woman. Women talk. Women gossip. Women say stupid things. And we say more stupid things to men. Because somehow, when a man comes in the room, most women's IQs drop 20 20 points at least. I don't understand it. It just is what it is. Now, I listed in my other video, straight to the Tennessee Sex Offender Registry requirements for employment and residential restrictions. I hope it answers many of your questions. I want you to know that if you stop this man from working here through harassment, then it could end up with charges for harassment, telephone harassment, or more. And that's no small thing. That could lead to more issues. But if you stop him from working, then he can't pay his supervision fees. He can't go to therapy. He can't go to his sex offender treatment that he's required by law to go to. He can't pay for his annual lie detector test. And he can't pay restitution to any victims that he may owe restitution to, which could then impact the victim's ability to pay for their treatment and go through their healing process. There is a ripple effect. And lots of times the victims are healing on their own, and if someone in the community then rings up a big stink about it, it normally triggers that victim back into that mentality. So normally once there's a healing pattern, it's better to just let the healing pattern go than to constantly dog somebody about what they did years and years and years ago. I am not saying that what this man did is excusable. Absolutely not. That's why he went to court and had to deal with the justice system and went to the prison house. That's why he went through that. What he did was absolutely not okay. At the same time, under the same law, we must all live. And harassment does not fly in either direction. Now, if he's doing something that is physically violating his supervision or breaking the law, please report it. Report it to the supervising officer that's on the TVI page or to the local county sheriff, and it will be taken care of immediately. Like, we would get calls and leave the office in 10 minutes to go to the home and confront people. Like, we were on it, y'all. We're not lazy. But at the same time, calling an officer who has 130 to 200 people on a caseload when they're supposed to have 60 to 90 and wanting to take up 20 to 30 minutes of the day because you don't want them at the burger hut washing the dishes is not going to change. It's not going to change a thing. It's going to create tension in the community. It's going to make that officer not want to answer the same number the next time that you may call with actual information that is necessary because they don't have 30 minutes to allocate to emotional tirades. And it's potentially going to harm that victim who may be needing that restitution to get through their own healing process. So there are a lot of things that you just can't discuss. And you have to go about this from every vantage point. And I understand parents being upset and not wanting to see these people in certain settings. I understand that. At the same time, once they've gone through the court system and are allowed to reintegrate, they have to be allowed to reintegrate. And yes, we hold them to a high standard, and yes, we absolutely watch them and say, we know what you did, and we're watching you. I mean, you can't beat a dead horse. That's already, double jeopardy. They've already answered for that. You can't continue to, mentally, emotionally charge them with that. They've already answered for it. I want people to learn to respond instead of react. That when you get unhappy and you just emotionally brain vomit, understand that that is not appropriate. To think about it and respond in a caring manner. Like, I understand the upset. I understand the anger, because we all have to at some point become aware that these things happen in these communities, that these actions take place. Bad things occur. I've seen more than I would care to see. But when we become aware that these things are occurring, we process it. And some of us process it more gracefully than others. But it has to be processed. And we have to come to the conclusion that a society contains all kinds. And that the law was made so that we can't emotionally hound that person once they have answered to a charge. He can be held to the standards of his supervision or his registration, but he cannot just all the time, repeatedly, be hounded for what he's already answered to. Does that make it okay that he did it? No. Should we forget that it happened? No. Put it in the back of your mind and be aware as a member of that community and a parent. But we cannot physically harass someone just because we don't agree with them. If you want the right to physically stop someone from being in your community or from having life or even breathing, as some of you have expressed, because they did something you can't wrap your mind around, then you have to offer that same freedom to people that don't understand you and can't wrap their mind around you and want to do the same to you. That's why we created a law, to meet in the middle and to create a bond that we all live under and we all know protects and holds us all accountable. So when I hear people say they should have hung him at the first tree they come across, to me that is the equivalent of the people in society now saying that the people that want the jibby jabby should never receive any kind of treatment in any hospitals and should just ride off into the sunset and be gone. Both are polar opposites, but they're extremes, and these extreme views are not healthy, and they don't help communities, and they certainly don't help people that are trying to heal after trauma, because the more that the more that their abuser is brought up, the more that they are pushed back there, and the harder it is for them to go forward in their life. So what you might see as doing something heroic or great or standing up for this victim, they might see as a speed bump, because they're doing great, and then every time you bring them up, they get kicked back, and they've got to go through another 2 months of treatment to go past that barrier again. And there's so many ways to see this, and I see it from so many ways because I've been an officer, and I've also dealt with sex offenders in treatment and taught CBT to offenders and helped with the sex offender therapy classes, and I've helped counsel kids that have had trauma, severe trauma. So I see this from many aspects. But honestly, all of those viewpoints are attached in the middle. And if you hinder or harass one, it ricochets and bounces off the others that are entangled in that web. And so you have to be careful how you respond to these things. I would say if he's washing dishes, let him wash dishes and let him pay his restitution to his victim, let him do his supervision. If you see any inappropriateness to children, if he's anywhere where there's a child, if he's at a soccer field, a ball field, please report it. He should not be there. If he's doing anything super skeezy, trying to hug kids that come into the restaurant, report it immediately. But if he's working somewhere that there's not a play area, there's not a lot that can be done. He's allowed to work there. At the same time, if you think he's handling pee, call the State Department of Health. Call the local health department. They will forward that on. They will immediately check on that. Call the 800 number on the restaurant front door. But there are so many ways to handle this that are appropriate as to inappropriate. I just want everyone to think and not react, but think for 5 minutes and respond in a caring, compassionate, and careful manner so that everyone moves forward. Everyone gets a little bit of education, everybody moves forward, and we're not falling back because of our own behavior. I mean, I've met people that I preferred were not in my communities. There's nothing I can do about it. They have every right to be here as much as I do. I've met people that I thought needed longer jail sentences. That's not for me to dictate. That's for the judge and the jury. I've met people that I paroled that I thought should have been paroled. That the parole board should not have given them a parole release option. But because they had employment, because they had a good home to go to, and because they were being paroled by the parole board, I had no legal way to stop them from being released, so I supervised them. And I grew, because every time I hit a wall that I didn't agree with, I had to learn why I didn't agree with it, and then I had to learn how it was handled. Why I didn't agree with it, how it was handled, and I had to learn to mesh it together to move on as a human being. So if you have an extreme emotional response to this, I would say do your homework. Go to this Tennessee State Sex Offender Registry portal with tn.gov and look at all the requirements that they have on them. Educate yourself. Understand what you can and cannot report. Understand what you can be angry about, what you cannot be angry about. Understand where being an appropriate reporter of events crosses the line to being someone who's harassing somebody for something that cannot be changed. Because no one deserves to have toxicity in their life. You know, even if they've done horrid things, if they've paid their dues, done their time, I can't add to that. I can't say, oh, I'm sorry, I think you need to do 10 more years, so let's put you back in for 10 more years. I don't get that. I don't say, well, okay, I don't want to see you every day, so I get to cause you shit every day. That's not legal. Think about these things. Because a lot of people that are wanting to have specific responses to this are going to create turmoil for themselves. You're going to see someone have an emotional response, so you're going to have an emotional response, but you're going to get into a problem that you can't even afford a public defender when they can afford 5 lawyers for 10 months at a time. Think, people. Think. Yes, with money and status comes a little bit more freedom to have a little bit more emotional responses because you have a better cleanup crew. But normal people don't have that. So don't follow someone down their emotional path. Think about how it could impact you, if it could cause you harm. Don't follow someone because their lifestyle or their livelihood or they are attractive in some way to you. Because good people will take you down bad roads sometimes. Deal with your own emotional responses and make your peace with it. And if it's just like, this is something that I am obviously not going to 100% agree with Upchurch on. I understand his upset and his passion and why he became upset, because I saw a lot of people do the same. At this age that he's at, when you become aware of these things, you have to learn to process these things, and he's at that age. And some of us process it more gracefully than others, and we just all have to process it. But we all certainly don't have to jump on the bandwagon and process it the same as everyone else. We should all individually sit back and process it ourselves instead of jumping on what everyone else wants to say. Please go read the Tennessee State Sex Offender Law. Please go educate yourself. Please don't set out to make someone else's life toxic just because you think what they did 6 to 10 years ago is unthinkable. Please don't put yourself above Tennessee state law. Please don't put yourself above the Tennessee prison systems that holds these people for their time. And please understand that person that is washing dishes, that just wants to be left alone to wash dishes because that's all that their life can do now. Sad as that is, that's all they can do now, is a menial task for menial pay. Please realize that menial pay may be paying for their victims' treatment to get better. Their victims' psychological healing journey to get better may rely on that man washing those dishes. And if you impact that man being able to wash dishes, you impact his victim healing. Please look at this from a few different outlets and try to understand the law. Understand how you emotionally digest the law. Understand the difference between reacting and responding. And understand that we can all disagree, but we can all find something to agree on. And the one thing we can agree on is that Tennessee state law is written in black and white, much like what they admitted guilt to in court, that yet it can't be changed. So go and educate yourself about Tennessee state law and hold these offenders to Tennessee state law, but don't hold them to an emotional, fantastical expectation level that has no bearing in the real world, because that will just create a problem for you. No one else but you. I just want to help. I just want to help people understand But understanding takes both sides trying. And sometimes I don't feel I have both sides trying. And I try really hard to have both sides trying. Because I understand. I try to understand from every avenue. I've lived a weird life where I've done a lot of work, a lot of invasive therapy work with a lot of people that most people don't come in contact with. And I wish I could bridge the gap to where we could at least have mutual respect for people trying to function. I have the greatest of sympathy for any victim. I wish we could stop this from ever occurring, but humanity and biological urges, chemical compounds in the brain, and genetics and predisposition due to trauma as a child, it can't be stopped. But if we educate, if we just don't respond, if we educate instead of reacting, if we educate ourselves and then we respond in an educated manner, not only can we hold our county constituents to the law, but we can find a way to respect them at the same time. Sometimes how we respond to people says more about ourselves than it does about the other person. And I would rather be a link in the chain to help pull them out of the ditch, to keep them out of the ditch for the rest of their life, than a piece of metal on the road that puts them in the ditch and causes them to do something else stupid. People are going to be more positive with positive behavior around them. They're going to be more negative with negative behavior around them. Please be careful about what energy you put into this world and how you put it in there. It does dictate other people's lives more than you think. I don't know what else I can say other than if somebody took you up on charges tomorrow that were unfounded and you couldn't afford a lawyer and you had to take a plea deal to get out, how would you feel this happened to you? Because there are some people that are completely innocent that have pled to many things in our prison system. Hold people accountable appropriately and by the books, by the law books. It can be done.